And all I can say is God bless Texas.
Texas wins praise from the White House after leading legal action to change the results of the presidential election.
How can anybody trust those elections for now or ever?
But see why the long-shot lawsuit isn't the only way Texas leaders are getting involved in other states' elections. Doctors sending a message to state lawmakers, why they're calling for new urgency to address COVID-19 skeptics in Texas. The virus shut down a lot of December plans, but it didn't stop campaigns from holding in-person fundraisers.
It's business as usual, and that can, I think, rub some people the wrong way.
How a last-minute dash for cash has some lawmakers willing to take health risks. Hello, and thank you for joining us for State of Texas. I'm John Engel, in for Josh Hinkle. The big story this week in Texas politics, a Supreme Court lawsuit filed by Attorney General Ken Paxton. It's a challenge to election results in 4 battleground states where President Trump lost. The Supreme Court refused to hear that case, but the attention and support the filing received is part of a much bigger story. It shows the influence of Texans in politics in other states and in the nation's capital.
How can anybody trust those elections for now or ever?
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, a loyal ally of President Trump, was indicted 5 years ago on felony securities fraud charges. And in October, several former aides to Paxton accused him of bribery and misusing his office to benefit a wealthy Austin donor. Some filed whistleblower complaints after they were fired for raising these concerns. But Paxton says there's been no talk of a pardon from the White House.
I've had no discussions with anything like that.
Texas's lawsuit in the Supreme Court challenges election results in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Michigan, saying changes made by those states before the election were unconstitutional and skewed the results.
That is a remarkable request to make of a federal court, particularly a very conservative Supreme Court, so a federal court that has been very protective of states' rights in its history.
Congressman Chip Roy, once a first assistant to Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, calling his former boss's lawsuit a dangerous violation of federalism. Senator John Cornyn, a former Texas Attorney General, told CNN that he's struggling to understand the legal theory behind Texas getting involved in elections by other states.
I do think this issue is working its way through the courts. Unfortunately, the president's path forward is narrowing.
Political experts say Paxton's lawsuit diverts attention away from his own legal challenges and plays to President Trump's strong support among Republicans, but that it comes at a cost.
When you're pursuing politics to the detriment of institutions, I think it raises important questions, and particularly when it seems profoundly self-interested.
Paxton's lawsuit aimed to delay the December 14th deadline for electors in states around the country to report election results and seal a victory. Those votes would formalize Joe Biden's presidential win. In Texas, the electors will meet on Monday afternoon at the state capitol. They'll physically cast those votes for president, and those votes will then head to Washington. They'll be counted in a joint session of Congress. As Ken Paxton is contesting election results in other states, prominent Texas leaders are getting involved in the next big election, the runoffs to represent Georgia in the U.S. Senate. The January 5th runoffs between Republican Senator David Perdue and Democrat Jon Ossoff and Republican Kelly Loeffler and Reverend Raphael Warnock will determine the majority in the U.S. Senate and the effectiveness of the incoming Biden-Harris administration. Former presidential candidate and Texan Julian Castro rallied with Ossoff and Warnock in Georgia this week. Senator Ted Cruz, Congressman Dan Crenshaw, and Republican Party of Texas Chairman Allen West are all planning to make appearances in the coming weeks. Chairman West joining us now. Why are we seeing Texas get so involved in the Georgia Senate runoffs?
One of the flags, the early flags of Texas, the Liberty or Death flag, the Troutman flag, was done by a little girl in Macon, Georgia, not too far away from where my mom was born and raised. So there's a bond between Georgia and Texas, and we want to see a strong Georgia. We want to see a Georgia that enables us to keep a majority in the United States Senate. And just the same as you have an incredibly large state here in Texas, the largest state east of the Mississippi River is the state of Georgia. And of course, that's where I was born and raised.
And how did it come together that the Republican Party of Texas would be phone banking, block walking with volunteers and really deploying the ground game of Texas to help win in Georgia?
It was Texans saying that they understand how important this election is and how important Georgia is, and they, came up on board, and we made the connections with the Georgia GOP and the Senate campaigns as well to say that here we have resources, we have people that are ready to go. The mighty Texas Strike Force is doing a fantastic job, and of course, I contacted a lot of the friends and acquaintances I have back in Georgia saying that, just let me know when, and I'll do my best to get back to Georgia.
Chairman West, thank you. The Texas Democratic Party tells us that they'll also be holding some phone banks for Georgia later this month. One day after Texas challenged election results in Georgia and 3 other states, Governor Greg Abbott visited the White House. He joined other governors for a discussion about distributing the COVID-19 vaccine. Abbott says more than 7,200 providers are signed up to administer that vaccine in Texas. Even with the state's large population and the Pfizer vaccine's extreme storage temperature requirements, Abbott says Texas is ready to go.
We understand when we're doing something this large, especially in a state the size of Texas, we needed to make sure that we were able to work out the kinks, and to do that, we actually ran several mock distributions in advance to make sure that when it does arrive, we will have eliminated any of the potential missteps.
Governor Abbott said a statewide communication system will be in place to let Texans know when to go back for their second dose. Mobile medical units will be in rural and underserved areas to administer vaccines. The White House vaccine meeting did not include members of the Biden transition team. That has some members of Congress concerned. Maggie Glenn speaking with Texas Congressman Lloyd Doggett to get his perspective on the meeting and what he thinks needs to happen next in the fight against the virus.
Tell me kind of your first impressions about the governor's visit to the White House. Do you think that anything productive came out of this meeting at all?
Not really. What we need is a national plan that President Trump has failed to provide, and an end to the interference with local public health officials that Governor Abbott has clung on to throughout this. We need to recognize, as President Trump's own CDC director, Dr. Redfield, said back in September, that right now wearing a mask is better than having a vaccine. And we need to mask up and get ready for this difficult situation that is causing our hospitals to be near capacity. So I'm very troubled about the situation we're in. I wish that there were good cooperation and coordination between the new administration and the outgoing. Instead, we have gatherings that just bring aboard political supporters, spurt out more mission accomplished, when in fact we have a very big challenge ahead of us. And it has been this failure to wear a mask, ridiculing people, interfering with local government, and doing things like today, proclaiming victory when we are at the beginning of a very, very troubling time that misleads the public and makes it more difficult to fight this terrible pandemic.
And speaking a little bit more specifically toward the vaccine plan and the plan for distribution, federally, we're getting 1.4 million doses of either Pfizer or Moderna, kind of a combination of both in the coming weeks. How do you feel about the state's plan about, who gets the vaccine first? Do you think that falls in line with what the nation's top doctors are suggesting?
That sounds like a substantial number of doses. But I think that the first weeks see a much smaller number, not enough to cover perhaps even all of our healthcare workers in Texas. We face a need to cover our essential workers that are out there with the public. That includes many people of color who have suffered disproportionately. Our nursing homes have been a place where we need protection for not only residents, but for staff members. So I want those vaccines to be out there and available. They will not address our immediate problem of the next few months. And it remains to be seen, once a vaccine is taken, how long it provides protection. So there are many unanswered questions of the vaccines. I certainly plan to get one when it's my time to get one. I encourage everyone to do so. They are not a panacea. We still have many other issues that need to be resolved, and we could do with more inclusive leadership that relies on medical science instead of political fiction.
I'm sure you probably saw the lawsuit that Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton filed. I just wanted to get your impression of that lawsuit.
Well, Ken Paxton, who uses lawsuits to try to take away our health, to deport dreamers, now is out there promoting this view that the president didn't lose the election, he lost. They would thwart democracy. Whether Mr. Paxton's goal is to get a pardon for his own misconduct or just to continue to curry favor with the Trump administration, what he's doing and what other Republican office holders who refuse to accept the will of the majority of Americans on this election really harms our democracy. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be sworn into office on January 20th, but the long-term damage to our democracy is very far-reaching. We need to be able to bring our country back together, and we can't do it when there are lawsuits like this and continued claims of fraud with absolutely no evidence. Paxton included no evidence with his lawsuit. It was just another political statement.
On the day after Governor Abbott's White House visit, President Trump granted federal disaster status to several counties in Texas affected by Hurricane Laura. Governor Abbott requested the declaration in September. Laura did quite a bit of damage in late August in portions of East Texas. Now federal resources are available to help pay for cleanup and repair work in 5 counties. We're all tired of living with COVID-19 and the restrictions that come with it, and it's become extra difficult for children, the impact one doctor says it could be having on their mental health. Time is running out for people without insurance to sign up for health coverage, how some groups are trying to get Texans to act before the deadline. And later, campaign cash in the time of COVID, why health concerns did not stop dozens of in-person fundraisers last week in Texas.